Hey, what's up, class? Welcome back. Another episode of Math 1 Distance Learning, room 1809. So, hope you guys are doing well. We have been doing rate word problems. We've been doing that for a while. And we started learning about linear equations. So, we would take a rate word problem and we would write a linear equation which would match the word problem so that we could solve the word problem. And then from there, we started discussing the idea of functions. So a linear equation, the mathematical term for that is a function. A function has an input and an output, an independent variable and a dependent variable, a domain and a range. So those are concepts that we have covered and we've been working with for the last couple of months. So today I'm going to introduce a new concept in this class. It's a concept that you've probably heard in a previous year, and it's the concept of slope. So it's the mathematical term slope. So to get started, I want to refer to a lesson that we did recently. It was a rate word problem, and it was about Charlie and his part-time job. So I'm going to flip over to my PowerPoint, and you should have in front of you your notes called Intro to Slope Notes. It's got a little picture of Bart Simpson at the top. But before we start those notes, I want to refer to the lesson that we just did recently. So let me flip over to my PowerPoint. Okay, so in the lesson that we did recently about Charlie and his part-time job, Charlie had two different jobs in that word problem. So he had one job where he was working as a busboy at a restaurant and he was making $8 an hour. So a busboy, remember, in a restaurant, after a family leaves the table, the busboy comes by and picks up all the dishes and plates and glasses and puts them in this kind of rolling cart, and they clean the table off for the next customer. So Charlie was working as a busboy, and he was making $8 an hour. Well, he wanted to make a little bit more money, so he went searching for a job, and he found a job at Home Depot that paid him $12 an hour. Now, if you look at the graph, we've already talked about this, but if you look at the graph, you can see red is the Home Depot chart for what he earned. Over here is earnings going up this direction. And then here's hours worked. That's on your x-axis. And green is the busboy. And we can compare after 1 hour of work, when he was working as a busboy, he was making $8 an hour, but at Home Depot, $12 an hour. And then after 2 hours of work, this was now 16 and this was 24. After 3 hours of work, this was $24, and his pay at Home Depot was $36. So we can see as we track the hours that he works at each job that eventually Home Depot, he's going to be making a lot more money. Here at 6 hours, there's quite a big difference, and that difference in pay will continue. So we talked about what is causing that difference. Why are the lines different? He's making money for both. And I think we covered that the Home Depot line has a higher rate of pay. So what do you notice about the red line in comparison to the green line? So one of the things that we discussed was that it's a steeper line. So there's a connection there. So the higher rate of pay, so Home Depot, he made $12 an hour. So and that is a steeper line than the green line, right? Steepness is how high or how vertical that line travels, right? How steep a line is. That's what we're going to call slope. Okay, so the higher rate of pay causes the line to travel higher at a faster rate, right? He's going to get to 30. For example, he's going to get to $24 after 2 hours at Home Depot, but it's going to take him 3 hours to get to $24 as a busboy. Okay, so let's get into the notes now. So I just wanted to review a little bit. So a higher rate of pay is going to make a steeper line, a steeper line. Okay, all right, so intro to slope notes. Okay, so our objective is to be able to find the slope of a line from a table or a graph, and we want to be able to use rate of change to solve problems. And Bart Simpson and his skateboard are going to help us out a little bit here. Okay, so we want to be able to find the slope of a line. All right, so let me give you a definition of slope. First off, so here's our Home Depot and our bus boy at a restaurant. Here's our rate of pay. So we just looked at that. So here's a definition of slope. So slope is a measure of the steepness of a line. So for example, if I have a ruler right here, this ruler, it's not very steep, right? This would be a flat line. But if I start to tilt this, I'm changing the steepness of the line, right? Or I could change the steepness of the line this way. I could change the steepness of the line, okay? So steepness, the measure of steepness is what we call slope, all right? So it's expressed as a ratio of the rise over the run, and we'll show you what we mean by that in just a moment. But slope is the measure of the steepness of a line. Okay. And so we could write it like this. We could write rise and then the fraction line over the word run. So this would be a ratio. Or we can, so on rise, if you think about it, so rising would be going up, right? Up and down, rise. And we travel along the y-axis when we're rising, when we're going up and down. So that would be our y variable or our y-axis. And then the run, you're going to run sideways. We're going to run sideways. We're going to run along the x-axis. So we're going to rise on the y-axis and we're going to run along the x-axis. So we put an x down here. And then slope is commonly known as y over x. All right, we're going to unpack it a little bit more. Just go ahead and get the notes down. Okay, slope. So I just mentioned this a moment ago when we were talking about the Home Depot and the busboy, the rate of pay. Slope, this measure of steepness, it's the same as a rate of change. It's the same as a rate of change. The reason this line is continuing in a straight line is because there is a constant change. It's a constant change. It's going up 12 over 1, up 12 over 1, up 12 over 1, up 12 over 1. We're going to get to that. And the restaurant, the busboy job was only up $8 and over 1 hour, up $8 and over 1 hour, up $8 and over 1 hour. Okay, so both of them have a straight line because they have a constant rate or a constant rate of change. All right. Okay, so it might help you to see some images. So when we think of slopes, like typically the idea of a snow slope, right, or a ski slope or a snowboarding slope, right? So here are some pretty steep, these are pretty steep snow slopes, okay? In real life, so that was in nature. So in real life, we see slopes on roller coasters. All right, so we've got a slope traveling up, we have a slope traveling down, and we know that the steeper the slope, typically the scarier the roller coaster, okay? So many of you have been on roller coasters, Magic Mountain, Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, all before those closed down. Okay, and then here are some slopes and some water slides. Again, the steeper the slope, this typically the scarier, the greater adrenaline rush. Okay, so these are just examples of slopes. And we're hoping, we don't normally think about this when we're getting on a water slide or a roller coaster, but I think in the back of our head, we're hoping that whoever designed this water slide, or whoever designed the roller coaster, that they had a good idea of how slope works, right? Because we don't want them just randomly putting pieces of fiberglass together and then just saying, okay, go at it, right? If this is not designed correctly, then people are going to fly out and have some serious injury. So I think in the back of our head, we're really hoping that they knew what they were doing when they were designing these uh, these water slides. Okay, let's look at a few more images. Um, Slopes in real life. So freeways and freeway overpasses. We don't really think about this when we're driving in a car, but once again, in the back of our mind, we're hoping that these things are designed correctly. When you're getting on an overpass and you're going 60 miles an hour, you're hoping and you're trusting that the engineers that design these freeway overpasses and the construction workers that built them, you're hoping that they understood slope and the concepts of slope, because we don't want to fly off the freeway and fly to our death. So once again, those are just areas of real life where slope is actually important. This one I threw in for fun. This apparently is the steepest street, not the steepest mountain, but the steepest street in the world. I believe it's in New Zealand. Can you imagine having to walk home every day from school on that one? Might be fun to ride your skateboard down, but I'm not sure about having to walk back home uphill to get there. But that's in New Zealand. And then here's a couple other slopes in real life that you guys might be a little bit more familiar with. I know we've got some skateboarders here at school, so going down rails and ramps is something that many of you are pretty good at. This next image is from the ESPN Extreme Sports, the X Games, and I believe that's called the Mega Ramp. And they go down that on a skateboard. I wouldn't go down that on my backside, let alone go down on a skateboard. I mean, that's a parking lot down below there. Look at that thing. That is absolutely insane to me. But they go down that thing on a skateboard. It's called a mega ramp. All right. Here's one. This guy, his name is Robbie Madison. You may have seen him on like a New Year's Eve event. He oftentimes will do stuff in Las Vegas where he jumps from one building to another. And he's a professional motocross rider, and he makes millions of dollars, and he gets sponsored by Monster and Red Bull and some of those extreme sports sponsors. But I can guarantee you that Robbie Madison cares about slope. He doesn't have a death wish. He doesn't want to die. And so he has engineers that are really good at math that design these ramps. They don't just throw up, some plywood and some pieces of wood and say, okay, Robbie, go ahead and go for it. No, these ramps, these slopes are all mathematically designed. He knows how fast he has to have his motorcycle going before he gets to the ramp. And then he takes off on this ramp, and if he's got his speed at the right speed, whatever it is, 70 miles an hour, I'm not sure. But mathematically, they calculate so that he can make that jump. And you can see he's making the jump there. Okay, so that's how he does his motocross tricks and so forth. Okay, all right, and then let's talk about some careers in slope really quickly. Careers that use slope. So construction workers have to have an idea of slope all the time. And here's a really important one. All kinds of things are important, but this is a wheelchair ramp, right? So if the slope of this wheelchair ramp is not designed correctly, I mean, you can imagine what's going to happen. The person in a wheelchair is going to go flying off the ramp or go down that ramp too fast. Now, I'm sure they're going to put some railings on this wheelchair ramp, but this construction worker is right in the middle of designing this wheelchair ramp for people that are disabled and handicapped. Okay. Here's another career that uses slope, an architect. Okay, so we've got 3 architects here, and it looks like they're designing some type of a large warehouse. So they need to have a concept of slope and a whole host of other mathematical concepts, but slope is a big one. And then here's one that you might not think about: a financial market analyst, a financial market analyst. So here you can see this market analyst. She's looking at three different monitors, and she's analyzing or tracking the stock market and financial markets. And a big part of tracking financial markets for banks or for stockbrokers is they've got to understand slope. They've got to be able to read graphs. And you can see on this one down here, she's tracking the slope of some type of a financial, looks like a financial gain of something. Okay, so those are just a few examples where slope is important. A lot of times, as Math 1 students, you'll say, when am I ever going to use this? Why do I need to know this? Well, hopefully I've given you some ideas of both in nature and in real life and jobs. Okay, so let's get back to our notes now. Oh, there's kind of a fun video of Robbie Madison. If you want to see him do some tricks, I just threw that in there. So some fun stuff that he does. Okay, so I already gave you a definition. Slope is the measure of the steepness of a line. So now we're going to get into a few more specifics. So slopes, there's different kinds of slopes. So two kinds are called positive and negative. So see if you can figure out which is which before I show you. So which one of these is the positive and which one is the negative? Okay, so is the red one the positive or is the red one the negative? And how about the blue one? So let's find out. So if the line is increasing, like saving money in your bank account. So if you think of this as like your bank account, so down here below zero, this is when you owed money and then you got it back, and this is increasing. So if it's increasing, then we call that a positive slope. Okay, so another way to think of it is we always read graphs. We always start over here on the left side and read to the right. So another way to think of it is like this is traveling up, right? It's traveling up. We start down here, even though there's an arrow going that way. We always start here and we travel this direction. We travel from left to right. So our graph is going up. So we would say that's positive, like your money in your bank account, or you might think of like positive people are going to take you up, or if you're a positive person, you're going to go up to heaven, something like that, right? So positive people are going to lift you up. Okay, and then this one over here, if we start on the left side and we travel along the line, we're traveling in a downward direction. So we would call that a negative slope. So if you think of your bank account, if it's decreasing, right? So the longer we have the money, it's decreasing, right? It's getting lower. So we would call that a negative slope. Okay, and you could also think of it as like negative people pull you down, right? So someone with a negative attitude, if you're around them too long, that's going to pull you down. Okay, so positive people lift you up, negative people pull you down. Okay, all right, so that's positive versus negative. All right, now let's go back to this. You can see on this roller coaster, there's both positive, right? So if we're going this direction, that's going positive, and then if that car travels, that roller coaster car travels back down, that's down in a negative direction. Okay, so positive, we're starting over here, we're traveling up, and then we get to the top, and then we start traveling back down. That would be negative. Okay, all right, now there's two other kinds of slope. We have slope that's called a zero slope, and we have a slope that's called undefined. So take a moment, see if you can figure out which is which. Which one would be the zero? Which one would be the undefined? Okay. All right, so if your line, here's our graph. If the line stays flat, so this would be flat, then like zero change in your bank account, then we would say that's a zero slope, okay? Another way to think of it would be If you've ever been on a treadmill, like at a fitness place like 24-hour fitness or Crunch Gym or someplace like that, and you go on a treadmill, when you're doing your thing on your treadmill, you're kind of running along doing your treadmill thing, and you want to make it more difficult, you start hitting that button, that up arrow, and then it's going to raise the incline of your slope, and it's going to make it more and more difficult. But then when you get tired and you're like, oh, I'm tired, and you want to drop it back down, you drop that back down, you're hitting the arrow, you keep hitting the arrow on the treadmill, and it goes back to 0. So that would be flat. 0 is flat, right? And then if we want to increase it again, then or I can't see which way I'm going, this way, maybe this way for you guys. So if we want to increase it, then the numbers would go up. But when we want it flat, it's 0. Okay, so flat is 0. And then another way to think of it, this would be kind of think of like a medical term, like if someone has a heartbeat, if they're in the hospital, and then all of a sudden their heart stops, that's called flatlining, right? Flatlining. So how that heartbeat jumps, it's jumping along, and all of a sudden it just starts to go flat. There's no jump, then that's called flatlining, and that would be a 0 heartbeat. So 0 change in heart. Okay, and then this last one over here, we would call this undefined. Okay, and I guess the way to think of that is if it goes vertical, if it's straight up and down, one way to remember is in the word up is a U, and in undefined, it's a U. So anything that's straight up and down, we call undefined. Anything that's flat, we call 0. So 0 slope. Okay. All right. So here's a little turn and talk. You don't have a partner to turn and talk, but if you were in class, we would do a little turn and talk. And here's a question for you. So we're looking at a construction site. You can see it looks like this house is getting close to being finished, but these along here aren't quite finished. So here's a little turn and talk to think about. What do you notice about the rooftop of each house? You notice the rooftops of each house. Okay. And what I want you to notice, if you're looking at this, if these rooftops, they kind of match each other or mirror each other. So you see like this has got two ridges here, and then over here is 2 ridges. And then this one is kind of going the opposite direction. And then this one is the opposite direction. But if you notice, all of these rooftops match each other. They're all pretty similar in steepness of roof, right? They're all kind of like monopoly homes. They all kind of look like each other. And this is kind of the newer way that homes are built. I guess people want to have their home look like the homes of the home next to them or in the same community. So you don't have any like really steep ones and then really flat ones and then a medium one. They all kind of match each other. Okay, so that's kind of the new style of homes. And so how do the carpenters make sure that the roofs match each other? Right? Well, it's really simple. The carpenters that are up there, the construction workers, they know how to utilize slope. Okay, they know how to utilize slope. So we're going to pause the video right now, and I'm going to start video number 2. It's still going to be the same notes, but I'm going to go ahead and pause, and we'll pick up right here. So calculating slope, we're going to use this rooftop right here. We're going to learn how construction workers or architects, how they can get that perfect slope to match the house next to it. Okay, so that's where we'll pick up. This video is going to come to an end. We're still going to use the same notes, and then I'll continue. Okay, so I will see you in just a moment. Let me log off of here, and 1 second. Okay, so I will see you guys in a couple of minutes on video number 2. All right, bye.